Since the start of the pandemic, I've been feeling pretty nostalgic. It must have something to do with everything changing so drastically. This nostalgic feeling pushed me to look back on shows that I grew up watching as a kid. It made me realize that growing up, I could never find a TV or movie character that I could relate to. I remember in elementary school, everyone would discuss their favorite characters from their favorite TV shows. One of the reasons why they liked these characters was because it reminded them of themselves. I never got to experience that. I'm almost 20 years old and I still have not experienced that. This inspired me to look back on generations and see how the representation of Blackness has changed over the years. Has representation gotten better? Has it gotten worse? Or has it been pretty static for the last few decades? Let's explore. I was born in 2001, so I was growing up during the weird shift in pop culture where we had just passed the glory of the 90s and were entering the new phase of a social media dominated pop culture. Things were rapidly changing. In particular, how we viewed media was changing. But I wanted to go back and see how Blackness was portrayed in the media in different generations. I decided to interview a few of my family members from different generations to see how Black representation has changed in the media.
So, who are some prominent Black figures in the media that you remember growing up?
Prominent Black figures in the media. Bill Cosby had a show that I remember watching. I remember watching in the 70s, Good Times. It was one of the first shows that featured a Black family, but don't know. At the time it was pretty good, but looking back I'm not sure how I feel about it.
I remember watching The Cosby Show. I remember watching 227, Good Times, Stanford and Son, and way later on, A Different World.
In the 70s, that was the era of what you would call Black exploitation films. So I remember seeing some of those growing up. Shaft, films in that genre.
Tell me more about growing up for you.
For me, I grew up in England. My first years were in England, and then in my teenage years, as soon as I turned a teenager, I came here to the United States. So, watching TV was different between the two.
So, what were the major differences that you noticed from representation while you were in England and then representation while you were here in the U.S.?
Representation in England, it was predominantly white, predominantly white shows. I remember watching a sitcom called Crossroads. Actually, it's not a sitcom, it's a series. It's like a soap opera. And called Crossroads, and it was all white characters, and most of the films back then, most of the shows, sitcoms, everything like that was all white. And then I came here, well, not by myself, with my family. We came over here, United States, and then there were some Black shows that were on TV. So they showed more Black shows here than they did in England back in the days.
Okay. You were younger. Were you able to relate to any of these characters that you saw, either in TV or in movies?
At the time, I think that there weren't many depictions of Blacks in film and in television shows. So I'm going to use Good Times as an example. I thought it was good to see a Black family in Good Times.
The show Good Times, even though it was a good show, I was offended actually
And at the time I didn't think about it this way, but when I look back on it, it seems like, the representation that they showed was of a family that was poor in the ghetto.
I really didn't like it because it portrayed black people as everybody being from the projects and being poor and all living on top, living together, living on top of each other.
I don't really know how much I identified with the characters on the show, but the fact that they were black was something that I could identify with.
Even though it was a comedy, it wasn't funny. It wasn't funny. To me, that was offensive.
So you feel like that show really just kind of leaned into stereotypes?
It sure did. It sure did.
I would say during my childhood, there was a lack of prominent black figures. We did have, I think, Fat Albert, but I'm not sure if that was in the 80s or maybe like late 70s. There were characters that had a black friend, but they were never a main character, so that was not someone that you aspired to be. We always aspired to be the little white girl. I was talking with my friend recently, and we was talking about Thundercats. They were all yellow, except for the gray one, Panthro. We considered him to be black. Yes. But like I said, because there was no story based around them, there was nothing to look up to. Again, we idolize the main character in the cartoons. Like, my favorite cartoon was Gem, and she had a black character that played, I think she played piano, maybe even guitar. But that's the thing, like, nobody paid attention to her. She was just there. She never really had a storyline around her. I don't even remember her name. But no, she wasn't somebody to look up. It was Gem. Everybody wanted to be Gem. It affected me in a way that somewhat of an identity crisis, as in you question why you don't have blonde hair, why are you not as fair as the character on there, because that's all you see. I remember, and I don't want to say that it's contributed because of not having a person to look to, but there was a time when I did ask my mom, like, the palm of my skin is pink and white, when is the rest of me gonna turn white? Because I guess you're looking for to be like what you see on TV, and when you don't see somebody that represents you, you don't realize that it's something negative, because you start saying, well, if I don't like this person, then I'm not right. And so I think you question yourself.
As I stated before, I was born in 2001. This means that I'm considered early Gen Z. I remember shows on Disney Channel such as That's So Raven and The Proud Family, and although I was a little young when these shows were still in production, I was able to watch reruns of these shows on Disney Channel and Disney On Demand. It was really the first time that I saw black people on screen, and before this, I didn't know that black people could be on TV. It's pretty sad to look back on my mindset back then. From these interviews, I have devised that black representation comes in waves. When certain aspects of black culture become more mainstream, we see a rise in films and TV centering around more black people and other people of color. In the 90s and early 2000s, we saw a lot of black people and other people of color portrayed in the media. Shows like The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Everybody Hates Chris, Family Matters, and Moesha were all created during this time and got a lot of great feedback. There is still a good following for The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air to this day, but what happened to all these shows? As I got a little older, I remember seeing True Jackson VP and Ant Farm, and other shows that had at least one token black character. At a certain point, it started to feel like there were even less shows that centered around a black family, or even a black main character. It became special for there to be a film or television show centering around a black main character. After 2005 or so, this just didn't happen as often. I remember in 2009 when The Princess and the Frog came out. Everyone was excited that there would finally be a black princess, and I was excited too. But I will never forget the utter disappointment and rage that filled my entire body after leaving that movie theater, and I was only 8 years old. I was distraught at the fact that Tiana was a frog for almost the entire movie. I mean, are we really that despised and disliked that we can't even have an animated character be a black human for an hour and 38-minute film? But I digress. I'm getting off topic. What did happen to all of these black shows? And even when we did get some representation, it wasn't always good. In Rameca Vincent Leary's article, they quote Alice Walker for coining the term colorism. Colorism is defined as prejudicial or preferential treatment of same-race people based solely on their color. We can see colorism in most films and TV. Colorism is used in film and television as a ploy to show that a television show or movie is diverse, but is still palatable to the white audience. This is done by casting a light-skinned black actor. This is seen in Netflix's Bridgerton, Ginny and Georgia, and Blackish. Even older shows like The Proud Family fall a victim to colorism. One thing that I noticed in particular was Penny's friend Dejanay. Dejanay is a dark-skinned girl that is the perfect example of the angry black woman stereotype. She is loud, has no manners, and turns on her friends whenever something might benefit her. This portrayal of Dejanay is extremely problematic as it perpetuates awful stereotypes of dark-skinned black women. As I got older and decided to rewatch The Proud Family, I realized just how much of a negative impact this portrayal can have on a young child growing up. We can see something similar in Bridgerton. Although people marveled over the portrayal of a diverse Regency era, this show has a lot of examples of colorism. The Duke is portrayed by a light-skinned actor. His father, portrayed by a dark-skinned actor, is mentally abusive to his son and berates him every time he gets for having a stutter. He even gives his son away when he believes that he is not good enough to become a duke when he gets older. He falls into the angry black man stereotype. The villainization of his character might have just been a choice by the director or the show writer, but we need to realize the awful stereotypes that we are internalizing when seeing a portrayal in this fashion. We as an audience do in fact internalize these messages that we are shown on TV, and we are bringing them into real life. This unfortunate portrayal was very distasteful and ignorant. Even the woman that raises the Duke, who is also a dark-skinned woman, falls into a stereotype. She falls into the all-knowing mammy stereotype. Colorism is something that has started to become more popular in discourse. More people are realizing that it is a problem, but we have seen very little effect on mainstream film and TV. There's more than one type of black person, and we need better representation. I hope that in the future we will see more open dialogue on colorism, and that directors and producers in the film and television industry will understand the harm that colorism has on young people. So, has representation gotten better or worse? Honestly, it's difficult to say. We live in a new age where we don't always have to go to mainstream media for a source of entertainment. Now with social media dominating, well, everything, we have the chance to look elsewhere to feel like we have proper representation. Now, with anyone having the opportunity to post photos and videos and gain followers, we have opened the door to multitudes of ways that we can be represented that have never been available to us. If I wanted to, right now I could pick up my camera and start a YouTube channel about pretty much anything. And there are bound to be people that enjoy my content, whether it's a small or large audience. However, the rise of social media also opens a whole list of problems, but that could be a video in and of itself. As an adult, I hope that representation in mainstream media will get better for future generations, as I know now how poor representation can affect a child and how they view themselves growing up. I interviewed my little cousins to see how they feel they're being represented in the media.
Do you see anyone on TV that looks like you?
No, but I'm okay with that because I mostly see people who like me. Like this guy, he was making soup and he said peoples are hard, and he said that peoples are stars in his book.
Okay. Oh, that's nice. So you say you don't see people on TV that look like you, right?
Yeah.
How does that make you feel? Like, do you wish that you could see someone that looks like you?
No,
Or-
I'm like
no?
fine with that.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you so much. Do you see anyone on TV that looks like you?
Yes, I see not that much, but I do see people who look like me.
Can you name like a few of the actors?
For instance, Jingle Jingle. It's on Netflix. The main people are black characters. And Tiana. She is Black Princess. And there's about one Black Princess, which is her. So, and there's a whole lot more. And I just love them for putting black people in my life. Dominic Steffens. She is a kid. She's a doctor to toys, yes. But it's saying, hey, you're a kid. You could be whatever you want to grow. You could be whatever you want to be when you grow up. Like for instance, you could be a doctor. It doesn't matter what color of your skin is. You could be anything you want to.
Okay, that's good. So, are you happy that you see people that look like you on the
Yeah.
screen? That's good. That's good.
Because for young people, like my little sister Naraya, it makes their life less complicated and less like, oh, I'm hated because of my color. Just because of the color of my skin, I hate myself. So with black role models in her life, in my life, and every colored kid's life, it just brings joy to them.
At a young age, we don't realize how important representation is, but as we get older, we see what an effect it has on us. Not only do we need more representation, but we need the right representation. We need to be given the same treatment as white characters in the media, with fully fleshed out stories and character development. Everyone wants to be able to see themselves on TV. We all want to feel like we're represented, and I can only hope that with my future as a film director, I can give the next generation of little black children the representation that I did not have. Thank you.